Good morning, everybody. We are back after a long break here with the Outdoor Cameraman Experience. I am Jess DiLorenzo, my co-host and partner, Jake Latondras, and we are Latondras Media Collective. How have you been, Jake?
Oh, been good. Busy as usual. It's been a
Yeah,
while. I feel like this is like our first show.
I know. Well, we were off for a little while. Then we reconvened together for some hunting and some work in Nebraska, which was amazing. And then you went off on your way for some more jobs. I had to catch back up at home, and we were off again. So we're back today. We're on episode 17.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I think, over the next few months, I mean, I'll be gone for a while, busy during hunting season, but I think we're going to get some good shows lined up and get this thing rolling again on a consistent basis. We got caught up in the rut. Let's just be honest with everyone. It wasn't
Yeah.
like we didn't want to do this. We wanted to, but we were in remote locations and we were
We were
busy.
hunting, but
Big,
we don't have
big time.
to sugarcoat it. We were hunting.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, just a recap, you and I were in Nebraska with Prairie Rock Outfitters, and we were both chasing big bucks, but you were chasing a specific big buck, and you nailed him the first day. Do you want to just give a little shout out to Bo Jackson?
Yeah, that happens never. Usually the last day or never. But yeah, we were very fortunate. We had been, you and I, in fact, last year we were hunting in the same area, and Ryan Livingston had shown us a video of a very big mature whitetail along the North Platte River on one of his properties that broke a fence post off with his rack. I mean, it was like a
Yeah.
baseball bat. So we ended up naming him Bo Jackson for that reason, and we focused on him all summer. He disappeared. He came back in early October, just like he did last year. So we set the stands up. We knew where he was. He broke the fence post off. We put a new one in. He started using that as his hub again, naturally. And sure enough, you and I had our whole goal was to carry two bows and
85
no pun
cameras.
intended. Yeah, and 10 cameras. And so the concept was, if any deer came in besides Bo Jackson, it was yours. And if Bo Jackson came in, then it was mine. That was what that we were going to try to be
That's pretty good
productive that
odds
way.
for me. I'm pretty amazed at how it played out.
Yeah, and lo and behold, the first big deer that walked in was Bo Jackson, and you helped me film it and photograph it. I'm very grateful for that. That was a really cool moment that we shared.
Oh,
And
I'm honored. I said, like, I guess I'm done now because, I mean, it can't get too much better than that.
yeah. Well, Sitka, I think Sitka is going to be posting a photo essay and a written essay with some video content, I believe, on their website and their social media platforms. So everybody be on the lookout for that. It's Jess did a really good job.
Yeah,
She got the
thank
kill
you.
shot in there. It was awesome.
We've
I've
been
looked at
holding
it.
it tight. We've been holding it secure because we knew it was going to, at some point, be displayed. So just keep an eye out. It will debut.
That's right. So today's show, let's talk about that. We got a really
Yeah.
great guest today, a very important guest. That's the president of a very important media association in the outdoor world. So, we've got lots of questions. One of the most common questions that we get as a collective and individuals is, how do I start a business in outdoor
Yeah.
photography? How do I get into the industry? And
I
today's
mean,
guest.
you could be an outdoor photographer, but unless you've got a business sense of mind, you're not going to make any money at it. So there's a whole other aspect than just being good at taking photos.
Exactly. And I think what, like our guest says all the time, you have to have a business mentality. So we're going to talk about all those things today. There may be some controversial issues that come up that are a big part of the outdoor world in the media side of things. So we're going to talk about all these things and try to get some of these questions answered and have a great discussion. And maybe we'll all come out of this learning something new from Tony today.
Yeah, I do every episode. I learn something new. It's awesome. It's like collaborative. It's collaborative and collective, and you learn something new from everybody. And if you're not doing that, you should. So let's get this
Exactly.
conversation started. Let's introduce Tony Bynum, president of the Professional Outdoor Media Association. So Google that if you're not familiar. But also, we're going to get into it and talk all about it on today's show. Tony. Hey, Tony.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, good. I'm great. It's like 44 or 45 degrees in Montana, so when it's above freezing at the end of November, you can't complain.
Yeah, we got some good weather here today too. I might try to head outside with get after some bears this afternoon.
Hey Tony, where are you located in Montana?
Well, right now I'm in Great Falls, Montana, just kind of right in the
Gotcha.
center of the state.
Nice.
Gotcha. And so Tony is the president, like Jess said, president of the Professional Outdoor Media Association, otherwise known as POMA. And tell us, tell us, tell us what you want us to know about POMA, to educate us on what POMA is and what you guys do.
Yeah, if you met us on the sidewalk, how would you explain POMA to somebody who had no idea what it was?
Well, uh, so basically, POMA there's two parts to POMA. We have our media members who are professionals in the outdoor media, whether that's newspaper writers, magazine writers, photographers, videographers, and then we have our corporate partners. The point of the organization is to build your professionalism in the outdoor media space, and so we sort of have all of the writers in the video, the content creators, and we also have the people who buy that imagery or buy those stories or produce those stories or print those stories together in an organization. The concept of the idea is that in doing that, we can elevate the craft. We can work together. We see each other. We network together. We know each other. And it's sort of like, walking into a space where, like you said, walking down the street. Like if I'm walking down the street and you're a member of this organization, we kind of already know each other. Even if you just wore a hat that said POMA, I could walk up to you and we could be friends. Like we're already in the same space. And so if you're a member of POMA as a voting media member, you have a certain level of sort of gained respect already just by the virtue of sort of going through the criteria and being accepted as a member. That way, our corporate partners oftentimes will look to our organization for writers, for photographers, for videographers. And if you're a voting media member of POMA, you already have met some level of professionalism. It's your business. You're into this for business. And so that's helpful. It's also helpful when you're on the media side. If let's say you want to reach out and write a story about a new gun, like let's say it's Bagara or something, and they got some new guns or they got some new equipment. If you're a member of POMA, these guys, as you know, whether it's Yeti, whether it's, I don't care what brand it is, they are inundated with people who say, I'm the next best, or I got this, or send me one of those, or, I'm the guy that's going to pimp your jacket and make you famous kind of thing. And if you're a member of POMA, they already know that you're serious in business. So it's sort of like, there's 1,000 guys trying to get a free coat. If you're a POMA member and you want to write an article about the latest and greatest Sitka gear or the best gun that Bagara makes, you have a relationship already built there. And if you are respectful of that relationship and you use those connections wisely, I mean, how much better can it get? You're not just cold calling people. You're already part of an organization. And so those are some of the benefits. We've been around for what I think it's going 12, 13 years now. I've been the president now for not quite a year. I've been on the board for, I want to say 9 or 10. I'm the longest serving board member. I think I've probably worn out my welcome and need to sort of move on because we need some fresh blood, at least at the board level. So, but I've stayed on mainly because I believe in the organization. I believe in what we're doing. I believe in building professionalism. We have a business conference every year that this past one we had in Lincoln, Nebraska. I mean, the people that showed up, we have women, we have minorities, we have young people, we have old people, we have motor companies, we have gun manufacturers. I mean, it was a lot of excitement. And it's the only place in the outdoor media space for traditional outdoor media where you can see that cross section of both young people, people that have been at it a long time. I mean, you can sit down with Jim Zumbo and hang out with him. It's not like you have to chase people around. Our conference is about businesses. It's about learning new craft. It's about trends, and it's about meeting people. And so again, that's just another benefit. The conference is fantastic. We'll have it again in June. Look us up or send me an email or get in touch. But there's 1,000 good reasons to do it. If you're on the fence about it, I guess talk to somebody. Call me, call Kevin, our executive director, talk to a board member. But I can guarantee you, if you put some effort into being a member, join, and then put a little effort into it, it'll pay you back easily within the first year.
Nice.
So is it fair for me to say that? Whoops, we're getting an echo.
It's gone. You're good.
It's gone. Okay. Is it fair for me to say that the POMA would be parallel to like the sports writers group, where you've got members in the sports writing community that that end up voting for Heisman candidates, or writing, like you said, this is a place, one spot, a hub where people that need sports writers can come find professionals in the industry that have dug their claws in, they've grown roots into the industry, and they're true professionals. That's what POMA is. So when you join into POMA and you become one of those members, so ultimately you have more street credibility. You have people to talk to. It's not just bouncing ideas off of other people in social media. You could actually call Tony Bynum or Jim Zumbo or whoever else is involved in POMA and ask legitimate questions and get legitimate answers, opposed to just hypotheses or theories.
Yeah, I mean, we send out a bulletin regularly. I mean, daily, sometimes every other day, where we're actually sending out to our members job listings, freelance job listings, writing jobs. And I mean, it includes anything in the outdoor industry. So anywhere from a social media director to resource managers to photographers, videographers. I mean, that's part of the service that we provide. So you make those connections. But I look at the opportunities that we sort of find. We're not necessarily creating that opportunity, but we're connecting someone who, say, Marlin, Offshore Magazine wants some photos of some marlin or something. You may have some of that. And so one of the things that we do is connect that demand with a potential supplier. And we do that openly to our membership regularly. So you can look on there, and maybe you're interested in primarily freelancing, and that's really what we have we have members that aren't freelancers on the media side. So they're maybe a photographer for a company, but we're largely freelance people. And so everybody is kind of in the same game. It's like, man, we're all trying to find new work. We're all trying to make these connections, and anything you can do to sort of help yourself along that freelance path is something you should consider doing, because as you guys know, I mean, it's not that easy. And so again, it's making those connections. It's getting a little bit of benefit, having a list of people you can contact. Again, if you call up one of our media or one of our corporate partners and you talk to them as a POMA member, that is much different than a cold call from some guy who's often, and I'll give it to you straight, 9 times out of 10, the guys making the cold call are almost sounding like they have something to offer you in a way that it's like, well, I don't really need that. And you don't really even know who I am. And like, that's not the pitch for me, buddy. That's like, I don't know where you're coming from. But if you're a member of POMA, you get to know who these people are. You understand their business a little bit. You interact, you get some information, and then you're sort of prepared to talk to them. I can't tell you how many times I get, I mean, I just got one today to POMA. Somebody saying, hey, I heard you guys were looking for great photographers. Here I am. Check out my website. Well, okay. I mean, that's cool, right? But that's kind of the pitch you get a lot of times. And I think from the standpoint of professionalism and from POMA, we help you develop a little better pitch maybe, and you can learn from people who have done this over and over, and learn little tricks here and there about how to make that happen and how to call somebody and when. And I mean, there's just, you guys know the business. So, as far as selling it, it's $200 to be a member, for media member. And I think we have non-media member, non-voting media. which I think is $50 a year. So let's say you're not quite at the level of being able to provide the evidence that you are a professional, but that you want to be, you can still be a member. You're just not voting. And when I say voting, I mean voting for the board of directors. How important is that to you? I don't know, but being a member is and should be at the top of your list. I don't know what organizations that most outdoor people belong to, but I think POMA is probably the most progressive. And when I say that, I mean, we're looking outside of the box. We're bringing in new people, young people. We just created an influencer category. So if you're an outdoor influencer, we have some criteria for that. You can become a member and get involved with our universe as an influencer now.
So it sounds. Oh, sorry, Jake.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Jess.
It sounds to me, I mean, a lot of people in this business use trade show season as their main networking time of the year. So everyone books all the shows, they go, they shake hands, they kiss babies, and it's like trade show is when you're out there. But if you become a member of this organization, all year long, you have access to networks, professional companies, tips and tricks and things like that you're saying. So it's almost like for the $200 that you might spend on a plane ticket to one trade show to see maybe 5 people for the entire year, you can use that money instead and go become a member of POMA and then access this entire circle of professionals within the industry, whether it's professionals looking for photographers or just to get critiqued and to discuss and to network with other people on your level, no matter what level you're at as far as professional industry. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if you just take a basic principle in a business model, whether it's photography or anything, and let's say you're doing marketing and it's just marketing side, you're doing 7 or 8 or 10% or whatever it is, 5% of your gross into marketing. There's a number there, and if you're looking at building your business, it's not really an expense, right? I mean, it's like it is, but it's like the cost of doing business. You've got to do something. You've got to be present. And so, yeah, going to the trade shows costs money. My thing with trade shows is I feel like, maybe this is just me, but as a professional, I'm a little bit like the SHOT Show. I go to the SHOT Show, but I'm not the guy on the floor bugging people because they're there to do a job. And it's not okay if you're just freelancing around and bothering people at SHOT Show. That's not cool. And so I'm always very respectful of that. We have different opportunities, maybe in the evening, maybe you can network, maybe you have meetings and you've structured it so that you're on an agenda with somebody and you've scheduled some time and you
prepared ahead of the show. You don't just, hey, knocking on the booth doors to going down the line. I see people do that you get there and it's just people knocking on booths. Hey, I'm so-and-so and this is what I do. Hey, can I have some free stuff? I'm so-and-so. This is what I do.
And actually years ago, in the trade show, etiquette world, or the world of trade show etiquette, it's rude to show up at a trade show and pay your entry fee to get in the door and then walk around with your fanny pack trying to solicit business when everyone else paid for booth space. And it's this, I mean, I remember that being an issue at one point, and now everyone's doing it. And I think this brings up a really great point, because there are what we're going to probably say here might sting some people, but let's just be honest and get to the point. There are a lot of amateur photographers and videographers out there that have a tremendous amount of talent. It's not as difficult as it used to be, not to be critical of anyone or to belittle anyone's work, but it's not what it used to be with the digital space, the digital platforms, digital cameras that do so much, work for the person behind the camera and all that. It's easy. But the one thing that people don't understand that you can't really Google, I mean, you can, but you're going to get the same answers. You can Google, how do I get paid to be a professional photographer? Or how do I become a professional photographer? Or whatever it is, you're going to get the same top 10 list from every blog that you read. The fact of the matter is, it's about building relationships. It's about having a resource like POMA to be able to go to ask the right questions, to get the right answers, because this is out of hand. I mean, in my opinion, it's a free-for-all. Friends are jumping in front of friends, trying to get in with brands. Like you said the other day, Tony, everything is totally commercialized. I mean, everything that we do is commercialized. So I think it's very important that we as a community have something like POMA to really sort of start gathering people in that are very serious about what they're doing and start educating people on how to do things the right way, because right now
To check
very few
people.
people are doing it the right way because no one knows how to do it. So we need to start educating people. I'm going to join POMA. I guarantee, I promise you, right after this show, I'm going to go on. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to join POMA because I'll be honest with you. I've heard remarks from lots of my, brothers and sisters in the outdoor media community at trade shows, on the phone, through text messages or whatever, you know, tell me that, what is POMA going to do for me? Why would I join this group? I don't really understand what I'm going to get out of it. But, at the end
But at
of
the same
this
time,
discussion,
why wouldn't you? What would be the
yeah,
Yeah,
negative aspect? It's not
right.
like POMA's going to go around and blacklist you. If anything, they're going to promote you.
yeah. What is it gonna? How's it gonna hurt you? Yeah, it's not
Exactly.
toxic.
Well, and if it's a 200, if it's the $200 price tag that's scaring you away, I mean, I'm amazed at the guys. I mean, look, between us all, everybody knows where the most sort of attention is paid in this business, and I don't care whether it's the outdoor photography business, hunting, it is gear. Like, you can put a podcast on about gear and it'll probably go for 20 years because everybody wants to talk about gear. At the same time, the first thing they do is come out with a Sony 3X this or a Fuji that or a Nikon this, and everybody's going, should I get one? And who's using it? And blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's $5,000, man. Like, use the camera you have and spend 200 on your business.
Bingo.
I just don't, I mean, it boggles my mind how it's so easy for a guy to come up with enough money to buy a 100 to 400 Canon, whatever that is, or a Nikon, and a camera body, and then start taking photos and say, hey, dude, check out my stuff. I'm really kicking ass. And it's like, okay, well, that's great. That's photography. And that's great. And do more of it. But, like,
It
check
looks
out your
it
stuff.
looks just like his.
What are you going to do with it? What's the point? And if you don't want to do anything, most of the time, though, I make the assumption that people want to sell and they want to run some sort of a business off it. And so, again, how much money do you spend on your business? How much money do you spend marketing? How much money do you spend on education? I mean, that's the other weird thing is a business in photography in particular. Every other business I've been involved with professionally, career-wise, training is a must. It happens. In photography, it's like, oh, I'm a photographer. We don't need to spend money on training. We just do more of it, or we read more articles or something. And I feel like, again, it's some marketing, invest in a little bit of training, $200 to be a member. And then if you go to our national conference, I guarantee you it will pay for itself if you present yourself in a professional manner and you go there with some ideas about what you want to accomplish. It's not like the SHOT Show, for example, our conference. The expectation at our conference is that you're there to do business. You're there to have a good time, learn something, interact with other professionals, and you don't have to feel like you're suitcasing like you do at the SHOT Show. If you roll in at the SHOT Show and you have 25 copies of a publication you created to sell your own business on, and you're sneaking around handing these things out, I mean, that's a POMA. You could back the truck up and dump them off. I mean, that's what it's for. So,
What happens? Take us through a one of your conventions. Like, what's the experience like?
well, it's oftentimes it's kind of quiet in a sense. In other words, it's like a family atmosphere. So you show up at a hotel. We generally will have the CVB puts on, like an event the first evening. We get together. Let's say you come in a day early. We usually get together. We go to a bar somewhere or a brew pub or something, and then we have an opening event where you'll have the whole CVB and the town and the city have an event for you. So you eat and you drink and you listen to music, and then we have a couple of days of programming where you have people, professionals, we bring them in and they talk about all kinds of things, from what kind of gear to use to, how to run a business and how to do your taxes even. And then we have a banquet, which we
How
have
many photographers, how many new photographers out there are paying their taxes? Just want to
Yeah.
know. How many of you guys out there are paying your taxes? Because I got to pay mine every month, so you have to pay yours too.
like, yeah, I mean, so
see how it worked out by guys. Screwed up
Yeah,
my
that's
backdrop.
no, I mean that's part of the business, and
Yeah.
those are the things that people don't know, because you can't just go do a $5,000 gig, get your money, and go, man, I just made $5,000.
Yeah, but how many
pay-
people out there are doing that? That's
well,
ridiculous.
when I was just mainly doing stock, I was selling mainly stock, say 10 years ago. This is a quick story about the reality of this. I was collecting stock for probably 4 or 5 years, creating my own stock imagery, whether it be hunting stock or wildlife. And I got to the point where I thought I had enough volume and enough quality volume that I could sell the stuff, right? And after the first couple of years, I got enough data to confirm what I kind of thought, which is this is really expensive. So, for example, I was doing 30 to 40,000 miles a year to collect the stock, 30 to 40,000 miles of vehicles driving per year. And a trip would be anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 to go on a trip for a week or two, maybe 3, whatever it was. So at the end of the year,
content.
I figured out that it was going to be, I had to sell to make a modest living, just modest, $80,000 worth of photographs every year, because of my cost of business was so high, because of the travel and the equipment and the expense and the days. And it's like, so if you just stop and think about that for a second. I'm a stock guy. I want to shoot outdoors, wildlife. I want to shoot, and when I started in photography, there was a lot of people who were talking about the business side of stock because it was a way to make money. I mean, I was making a living selling just stock photography. So there was a method to it. The point is, when you added it all up, if I wasn't selling $80,000 worth of stock, I couldn't make it, because the cost of doing business was 50. So that meant I could make maybe 30 at the end of the year, 25. I mean, that's not a lot of money. Some young guys, people can get by on that. But what I'm trying to get across is there is a cost of doing business. And if you're not thinking about those costs, you're not in a business. I don't know, maybe you're giving it away, which is okay if that's what you're doing. But if you're trying to run a business, you got to think about the cost.
Exactly. It's just like any business, retail, a bar, whatever you're doing, you have costs going out, cost of goods going out, and then income coming in. You do your balance, and you have a gross income, and the bottom line is your net income, and that's usually pretty low in the photography world because it's expensive. You're losing cameras, you're paying insurance, your travel expenses are extremely expensive, and you're getting right now, people are getting free this and free that. Well, I mean, there's no return on your investment then when you're getting, free gear for your photos, and don't have a plan to take it somewhere.
Yeah, it might be cool for the first few years, but once you've got some bills to pay and a family to support, it's just kind of okay.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, I should have prefaced, we're kind of going away from POMA a little bit. We're still in the business universe of photography, I think, but I wanted to kind of preface this by my goal in photography was from the very beginning to make a living selling or being paid to take photographs. So selling my images as a freelancer and being paid to take photographs, right? And so that's sort of behind all of my theory about business or how to make a business out of photography. Is
you
that
mean in terms of your foundation?
Yeah, like of all of it, even to this day, I don't want to be leading people as a tour guide. I don't want to be a social media guy using my photos. I don't want to be all these peripheral things around the industry and then do photography because that's what I really want to do. So I try to always circle back, and who knows, things may change. I mean, you never know, but I always tried to refocus back on what are you doing? Do you want to be in this industry, and where do you want to be? And I always want to just sell photos. I don't want to be a tour guide. Like there's a lot of people who do that. And I think that's cool. I would maybe occasionally try that out, but I don't want to be making $50,000 a year as a tour guide and calling myself a photographer. Does that make sense? I want to make money with my camera.
You bet.
That's kind of what's always circle back, and maybe it's getting harder. It's easier in some ways, harder in others. I mean, there's a lot of complexity there, but the number one goal for me was to make a living as a photographer. And so that leads in all sorts of directions. You can't sort of, everybody likes to say, and you guys can even probably support this, find your niche and do that better than anyone else. And I think while that is important, it's sort of like niches are niches, and you got to sort of get one, but you got to do other stuff too. So I use my camera to make a living. So I'll take photos of a lot of different things, mainly outdoor stuff. But the point is, I couldn't stay just in wildlife stock photography forever. There are some guys that do well at it still, but I knew that, like this isn't going to last because it's, a commodity. And so things changed. The whole model is changing. And I feel like if I stay focused on what I want to do and not get too sidetracked with, well, maybe I should be a social media guy. Maybe I should be a business manager, dude. Maybe I should help everyone else do something, this or that. No, I want to be a photographer. And so whether that helps or hurts, I don't know. Maybe I'm leading myself down a rabbit hole, but that's kind of the way I looked at it.
So how has the, going from print, you've been doing this a long time, and obviously with your credentials at Outdoor Life, Sports Afield, Field and Stream, wherever you've had cover shots or feature articles or whatever it is, you have credibility. You can walk, it's not like you're walking into a new industry. But having said that, going from print publication, selling stock imagery on that side of things, how has the digital world changed your world, disrupted it, or what do you do to adjust to that?
It's changed things in a way, because at least for certain subject matter, it's become a commodity, as I think I mentioned earlier, where basically it's a race to the bottom on price. There's enough volume, enough.
That's a great way to put it.
I'm stealing that from you.
You can find what you're looking for with the internet, and you can sort of go around the media. I mean, look at the stock photography business and look at, everybody used to have to be a member of some stock photography company or something and sell their images through a stock agent and that sort of thing. And that's gone away because of the internet, right? They still exist, but in large measure, I thought early on in my career that I wanted to be my own agent. I hung some stock with one agency for a little while, for about 2 years. And that was it. I've never done it. I'm not doing it anymore. And the reason is because I knew there was direct access to the buyer. The internet changed everything. Google changed everything. So I just, right from the get-go, I said, I ain't going to be a stock agency guy. So I started selling direct. And the only way to do that is to just flood the universe with everything you can about what you're doing, what your photography looks like. I mean, there's a whole methodology behind Google. And so that helped me sort of get around this thing where if I went with a stock agency, I might make $5 on a print or on a file that just sold for 500. It's like I made $10. Well, they made 300. I made 10. I put my energy into making the $300 or $500 sale, and fewer of them than I did in trying to just flood the market with photos that sold for $5 or $10. Mm-hmm. And so the digital world has changed in that is even more aggregated now. There's more material, there's more content, and it's cheaper than ever, and you can find it for free even. So you have to circle back and say, well, what can I produce that either no one else is producing? I tell everybody this. Do you want to run a successful photography business? There's a couple of ways to do it. One is sort of to put your nose to the grindstone and follow some good business principles. The other is, as a photographer, photograph Bigfoot. I mean, think about that, exactly. Right? Think about that. I mean, so there's more than one way to skin the cat, but what I'm saying is, if you could go out there and you're a decent photographer and you get a bunch of footage of Bigfoot, like that's going to change your universe. And so it's like winning the lottery. But the point is, you have to stay focused. And when you're looking at selling stock, it's just a race to the bottom. And I encourage everybody, do what works for you, but think about what your value is and how you want to reach the person who either needs your service or who will buy from you. And think about being unique and trying to create something either that no one else can, do it in a way that no one else can do it, whether that's post-production or whether that's in the camera. But that's where I see things, and it's kind of been going that way for quite a while now. It's like, if you look at every really successful photographer, and I'm not putting myself in that category, I have a long way to go, honestly, and I mean that sincerely. But if you look at the great photographers over time, every single one of them has done something or created something that no one else could, or they were in the right place at the right time and they did it. And so everybody has to be thinking about that. If you're out there trying to copy everybody else, if you want to be, I don't know who I can pick on. I'll pick on nobody. But if you want to be the guy that shoots with the a 35-1.4 everything, and you just backlight it all, and that's what you do, that's what you're gonna do. There's 1,000 guys doing that. Like, so do it because you love it, do it because there's a demand, but find something unique about the industry or the business. And the guys that have been able to do that, and I'm not saying it's easy, have become very successful.
I think it's a process where the echo's back. Can you hear the echo?
Yeah. What is that?
I don't know. Is your volume up
You're
on
good.
your? Okay.
I think it's just the lag, because if someone talks for a certain amount of time, then it's like it switches.
It lags.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I think it's a process, and I think one of the things that I see with young amateur photographers in our world right now is they are copying people. You might see an image pop up that just blows everyone away on social media, and then within 2 weeks, there's 10 other people trying to recreate that same photo. The eye of the dog reflection, the reflection in the eye of a dog is one that I could use an example, because it's a dead horse getting beat up still today as we speak. Everyone wants to try to get that cool shot. But I think the process is that people that copy other people they're not there yet. They don't have that creative mentality to do something on their own, but that is the learning process where they learn how to take creative shots, how to get the right exposures, how to get the colors correct in post or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden they're playing with, a variable, be it in camera or in post, and boom, something happens. And all of a sudden
The
it's
aha
different.
moment.
Yeah, the aha, that's the hump that people get over. And so there's some frustration behind all the monkey see, monkey do going on out there. But at the end of the day, it's experience, and experience comes from, I guess, picking a mentor or picking someone to follow and following that guideline, and then one day becoming a unique creative artist that finds his own niche.
Well, the tools are.
But at the same time, as they're whether they're copying or mimicking or just learning and experimenting, at some point that has to also pair up with a business sense and a professional side. So that's also super important for people out there who are watching to develop. So at the same time as you're practicing, whether you're being creative on your own or you're trying to emulate another photographer to see how they're accomplishing it and what settings are used, you also have to practice maintaining and developing relationships. You have to practice putting yourself out there, holding up to whatever standards you set for yourself. If you say you're going to do something at a certain day or by a certain time, you better do it, because as soon as you break that line of trust with your first contact, that's a slippery slope all the way down. So at the same time, you got to build both paths if you want to get to that point of professional working photographer.
And it's a small world, and people talk. We all gather at small watering holes here and there all over the country, and people talk. And when you start developing that, that reputation or negativity or whatever it is, you're cheating the system. Believe me, people talk about it.
Yeah. Well, if you're producing good content, it's kind of funny. I've seen guys that are just fantastic creatives, and they can make things that I would only dream about making. And and they're jerks, some of them, and yet they still have a universe, which I can understand. And I'm not just talking about outdoor hunting. I mean, I'm talking about the whole universe of creative and the whole universe of photography. There's a lot of ego involved in this.
No.
And so, you know, you're treating good, you kind of have you can get away with a little bit more. On the other hand, that wears out too. And I've always felt that if you're prepared so like I look at my job as being a problem solver, and I always have plan A, B, and C. And I don't think in my career plan A has ever worked, ever. Right? So, I mean, literally, you could have the best forecast on the planet. You could have everything set up, 2 vehicles, 4 cameras, 2 lenses of every kind, 4 flashes, and a whole team of people. Something's going wrong. And it's going to be something you probably didn't even figure out. Like, you wouldn't even think of it going wrong. They're little things like, I don't know.
Horse falling on your leg.
Yeah. Like, you don't plan for that. And if you're I mean, that's a little extreme, because if you have a broken leg, like, I kind of give you like a pass on that one. I'm not going to be your boss banging you over the head with a stick saying, get up the hill and roll, you know.
Uncontrollable, unforeseen variables.
And as a wedding, you guys know a little bit about that. I mean, you got to have everything, because I mean, think about that. There's people who take weddings and they have like 2 lenses and a camera body, and you're like, oh my God. Like,
it gives me anxiety.
It scares me, because the people hiring them, it's back to the business part. It's like, oh, they're $1,500. I got a nice website and some great photos. And like, okay, well, to be a wedding photographer, you have to be a wedding planner first. If you're a wedding planner, you have to have all this cool gear and make it work, because if something breaks, what are you going to do? And so
a photographer in any field takes on so many jobs. You wear so many hats. It's like, you got to be the organizer, you got to be the producer, you got to be the guy who plans lunch or no one's going to eat. And it's just like the same with the weddings and everything else. So it's
in the outdoor space, you got to know about everything. I mean, it's not just like a good example. If you're going to do a photo shoot with an optics company, let's say, or a rifle company, and you're hunting big game, or you're hunting deer, or whatever the case is, but you're there to photograph hunting, right? If the optics on the rifle aren't right, people will notice that. And if you have people who are putting that together, like, well, I'm going to mount the scope on this gun because we want that gun and we want that scope, and the rings are wrong, or what if, I mean, those things seem silly, but you can do a whole photo shoot and it's like, okay, so why is the scope 1.5 inches higher off the gun than it needs to be? No one would hunt with a rifle like that. And so if you know about those things, you can say, hey, wait, coach, like, we need to do something, get some different rings, or the scope's not right. Or, I mean, whether it comes to that or kayaking or whatever it is, you have to understand a little bit about that, because if you're sitting there looking at a scene, you're going, well, I'm a great photographer and I want a little backlight and I think the lighting's right. It's like, yeah, but the guy's doing something that no one would ever do.
It's ultimately you're the one who took the photo, so it's your fault.
You didn't pick up on the detail because you didn't know about that, because you didn't have enough experience in that arena to be able to really shoot that properly, because you just didn't. It's ignorance. Call it what it is, right?
All the time you see it, and I don't know everything, and I'm not even sure. I mean, I feel like some of it's not even my responsibility, but the moment when you say, you know what, coach, like, those snowshoes don't work in that kind of snow, no one would do this, then lights go on. It's like, okay, well, then what are we going to do? Then that's when you're going to get paid, because you got to figure out what to do. You got $10,000 a day going out right now, and you're doing this, and it's like, well, we have 2 days to get this done. The snow's not right, and we're doing a snowshoe shoot.
You have to figure out. You have to figure it out. That's right. I mean,
and
that's
these leaders that are out weekend warrioring with their cameras, which is fun, and I love it. What are they going to do? They're going to be like, I don't know what we're going to do. You know,
I didn't see that coming.
Right. And you can't guess on everything. I mean, you can't fix everything. But what I'm trying to get across is to look at this stuff and be a little more responsible, I think. And I don't know what the future is. I don't even know what's going on right now. I mean, let's talk about that maybe. Like, I don't even get a lot of things that are happening right now. Like, well, I ask myself 100 times over in my own head when I'm shooting a photo for a client or I'm trying to create something. I ask myself, what am I shooting and what is the story for that particular image? What is it that I'm trying to portray? Because I'm trying to connect it to my business. Either I want to shoot this for stock so I can sell it in the media or commercially to someone, or I'm shooting it to tell a story for an editorial client who's hired me to shoot a story. Like that, whatever the purpose is, I'm thinking about that for the image, right? And so I see so many great images from people who are trying to be in the photography business. And you look at the photo and you're like, stunning light, it's great flare, I love the style, but what is it for? And it's okay if it's not got a purpose, but if you're trying to build a business, you've got to be able to try and put stuff out there that people buying services and buying your material see and go, that would work for me. Not, wow, that's just a great photo. He's got 100 really great photos, but none of them could go in an ad because there's no negative space. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think for you young photographers out there, get involved with groups like POMA or the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, or try to get on, photography or a photographers list, go-to photographers list with different brands, because you'll get emails like I get emails monthly or quarterly from certain publications that will send out a shot list of necessities, and they're anticipating maybe 1 or 2 quarters ahead in the year as to what they're going to publish in their magazines. And so they're already throwing the concepts out there and letting their photographers know what they're going to be needing. That will give you the opportunity to go back in your archives and find something that they're calling for, or it gives you the opportunity to go out in the field and shoot with a purpose because you have someone asking for something. And that, I think, that gets you in the mindset of what you're talking about, understanding of the purpose and your responsibility before you go out into the field.
Yeah, part of being the working professional is not so much being the personal artist. I mean, a lot of times you have to anticipate your whole goal is to sell your photo to somebody who needs it to serve a purpose. It's if you want to be an artist, then you're not going to be a professional working photographer. You're an artist photographer. So sometimes you got to take your whole mindset out of it. Like I see, just like Tony said, I see so many photos that are amazing. I'm like, holy crap, like that could be a painting. But at the same time, you couldn't put that on a magazine cover, or you couldn't put that in a vertical 1-page ad, or a column, a 3rd-page column ad. So there's a lot of times where when I'm out shooting, I'm specifically only shooting things that I know will work for horizontal, vertical ads, or working a year in advance. Like our brands or our companies will ask us for things, and it's like you can't just go out the next day and shoot it if it's a snow image or if it's a turkey image. So that's part of
it. They all want you to do that. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I mean, I've had some huge brands come to me, like stuff you would blow your mind. And they're like, we need this in 2 weeks. And you're like, that is a $250,000 shoot.
Yep.
And you need it in 2 weeks. Like, I'm out. Seriously. I'm not.
So you can make your life easier by at least having a little bit of a stockpile from previous shoots or from anything like that. But yeah, at the same time, you also have to roll with the punches. Like one time I got a garage full of gear. I'm not kidding you. When the truck came and dropped off a garage full of like the preview gear annual type stuff, and it was July, and I had to shoot fall hunting images. So how do you go and you take everything in the woods and everything's bright green? So
no, that the schedules are all wrong. I mean, the whole industry's backwards that way. And I'm not saying that because people set it up that way or they're stupid. I'm just saying it's like if you have a product release and you want it for SHOT Show, it's like you need to be thinking about this last year. You can't like, it's like, okay, we're going to have the product release. We are on schedule to create new products, yet we need them photographed. And they're like coming to you in April and they're like, okay, we need to do hunting stuff because we have a new product. And you're like, it's green, the turkeys, there's flower, like it ain't, sorry, but you manage, and you really have to know where to go and how to do that stuff. And
Exactly.
It's very frustrating, but it is the universe we live in. And if I was on the industry side, I mean, I don't know how important imagery is to some people. I feel like it's King Kong. Like there isn't anything more important than your image and your brand. And so to not take that approach when it comes to what do we look like and what are we selling, when it comes to product development and when it comes to overall business management, I don't understand why photography is the last thing they think about. It's like, oh, we got this great product and we want to sell it, but we don't have any good photos yet. And here it is, like August, and you're going, so
They spent
I mean,
so much time on the manufacturing side of things. Then all of a sudden they run up against a deadline and they're calling all the photographers going, "Hey man, I need something tomorrow or yesterday."
Mm-hmm.
and so here's one way I've helped or dealt with some of this is I try to shoot things that last a long time that don't really have. I mean, that's hard, but it's doable. Like they don't necessarily have this lifespan where if you have one specific product or one specific look, it's like good for a year or two and then it's over with. The other thing is if I produce my own shoots, for example, I want to go out and do a bunch of turkey hunting or a bunch of mule deer hunting or a bunch of elk hunting or whatever the case is. Um, I know just from having done this enough now that I'm going to be at least 1 year out and possibly 5. So in other words, I can go produce a shoot tomorrow and inevitably it will be a year out before I sell anything from it and maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And so that is another, like to think about that from a business standpoint, like everybody wants it right now. Like I just shot this stuff, I'm going to throw it on my website. And it's like, boom, and bingo, no sales. And you're pouting. And it's like, oh man, I got all this new stuff. I spent $5,000 to do a photo shoot and I paid my guys and like I've done this and I'm not selling anything. You got to relax a little bit and just, get a strategy, and it takes time.
I with I have a lot of private clients outside of the brand commercial side of things, and my private clients don't understand that, and I have learned through experience, and lots of negative conversations with my private clients, like, man, we're going to go to Mongolia or wherever it is, and you're not going to get your video back for at least a year. It could be 18 months before you get that video back. So you have to be patient. Before it was, 2 months later, hey Jake, where's my video? Hey Jake, where's my video? Hey Jake, where's my video? And now in my contracts, I just go ahead and tell people up front, look, you're at least 12 months out. It's like taxidermy. You're probably looking at 18 months before you get this video back because it takes time. We have other assignments between now and then. And, it's like working construction. I'm not just doing one job at a time. We're multitasking pretty much all the time. And we feel like, we're busier than a two-headed woodpecker as it is. So, I mean, it takes time,
Well, the internet's changed that. I mean, that's a great point. Digital cameras have changed some things. How about the fact that everybody's racing away from TV to be online? And so if you're doing that, this cycle where you would shoot an October deer hunt and in 2016 to air it in 2017 is going away. Like you almost have to
100%.
2018 deer hunt in October is going to air on YouTube in 3 weeks or a month.
You're right.
Things are tight.
Otherwise, it's old news.
Mm-hmm.
And content can be great, and if you're doing a film, that's a little different. You have a little more time. But I'm just saying, like, there's that whole aspect of how things are changing too. Is you can't shoot something anymore. Well, you can, but more and more because it's going online. The expectation is that, boy, you got to turn and burn, and the other thing is how, and this is kind of important. You can also tighten up the sales model also by tightening up that turnaround. In other words, you could get a product a little sooner if you can turn it around before SHOT Show. You know what I'm saying? Like you can get it online a month before SHOT Show and the product just came out 6 weeks ago.
Right.
So that's just working fast though, and then really hardcore, eh?
Makes me tired just thinking about it.
I know.
I'm exhausted.
What
do you think?
I wonder why it costs so much money. I mean, hey, we can go to the moon, guys, if we got the budget. But if what they're asking for is a turnaround of 6 weeks on something, you can get it done, but it costs money to pull that off. If you give them 12 weeks or 12 months, it's a little different. But you know what I'm saying? Like you can do more with more money. There's no doubt about it.
let's talk about exclusivity. How do you feel about, or how do you sell exclusivity to a brand? Because that's something that I think has become corrupt in the photography world. You know, someone pays you. Lee Chose and I had a conversation about this, about how, you know, someone pays you for your services, but they're not really paying you for your products. They don't own all of your photographs. Just because they pay you a travel budget to go somewhere, all of a sudden, you know, they own all 894 photos that you took, and you can't post that anywhere. Let's talk a little bit about some, you know, exclusivity, and sort of straighten that out a little bit if we can.
Well, it's all over the world in the map. I mean, I can only tell you what I've done and how I approach it. This is one of those areas where new models can be created. Like as much. Let's face it, the demand side, the people who want the imagery want as much usage as possible. They want to be able to have as much of whatever you create as they possibly can with as little space between an agreement and the image. So in other words, if you go out and shoot it, they want to own everything and they want to do everything with it. Most of the time, they're not even aware that it's going to take a couple of weeks to process those images. Like people, it's like wedding photography again. I'll pick on that. You look at the magazines, those wedding magazines that are just like gorgeous, and people are like, I want that in my wedding. And you're like, that took $25,000 and 2 days to produce that shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Same with some of this outdoor imagery. It's like, dude, the post-production is 14 hours on that one friggin' shot, and you want 100 of them? Like, so what I'm getting at though is exclusivity. There's a price for that. I personally, only time I do exclusivity is when there are contracts that don't allow anyone else to know what's happening. And so for that reason, if you want the job, there's no choice. Like you either you look at that and you go, well, we're shooting this and no one's supposed to know what's even happening, and I can't share these photos. Like you can't push back on that too much because it is what it is. On the other hand, I've been pretty successful in negotiating over a time frame. So let's say we shoot something and I say, well, you get the first year, maybe two, and then I get to license this into editorial if I want to, or as long as it's not competing somewhere else, I can sell it. And
especially if you're negotiating your prices up front. I mean, there's some leverage there.
There is, and I think the longer this goes on, the more savvy some of these brands are getting and these companies are getting. Because let me give you an example. If I get a backpack from Glenn Eberly at Eberly Stock or something, and I shoot that because I'm doing a photo shoot, and I end up putting that on the cover of Sports Afield 6 months after I shot it, like, why would he say, no, you can't use those photos? It's like, that's earned media. If
he's double dipping, yeah.
People, you would be amazed, maybe not, at the number of companies that feel like because they wrote the check, they want everything and they don't want anybody else to see it. And some people, including myself, are looking at it going, look, let's do this. Let's look at your ice cream shots. Let's look at the stuff you want to blow out in your catalogs and you want to brand with. And then let's go ahead and release some of this other stuff to editorial stock, because you're going to get a double inside spread in outdoor life with your product showing up. Like, why wouldn't you do that?
Exactly.
And it's hard to convince people that's okay.
Yeah, I think there's a little control factor there because they're writing the check. They want to control the situation, and they get offended. Like, no. I paid you. I own you.
Yeah,
it's so backwards.
They need to realize that they're paying for the time and the skill, but you're using your time and your skill to create a product as well. So there's three parts to that, and you're only paying for one or two. So.
And again, I go back to it. There's a new model to be created all the time. I'm not saying that the models I use are the ones that are going to be around forever. Probably not going to be. But for example, I try to go on a product model versus a time model, because think about it like this: if I go out and we have a great day, it's a 3-day shoot, and I shoot really, really I get a bunch of great stuff on day one, and maybe halfway through day two, we're done. Like, we nailed it. Why are we going to shoot for another day and a half? And why is it a day rate? Why isn't it, look, we need 25 great photos. We nailed it in 3 hours. Why do we need to stay here for 2 or 3 more days when we got it done? And so they look at that and they go, well, but it's
cheat
not
me
you
out of my
out there
time.
using your gear, and it's like, no. So I try to help educate a little bit, and one of the ways I've done that is to, in one case, I took all up front. I said, fine, if you don't want to spend the money in that way, let's try this. I'll shoot for $750 a day. I'll just shoot for $750 a day, but you pay $500 for every photo you want that we create. I'll guarantee you 5. Guaranteed 5, $750 a day. You want any more than that, you pay $500 a piece. They bought 24 images after the photo shoot. You do the math. I'm like, I can do that. I'll take the risk up front. People don't like that. I mean, it's risky, because what if they turn around and go, thanks for the 5, and you just lost your ass? You're like, well, I didn't make any money. I lost my ass. So part of that, though, is saying, look, I know what you need. And I know I'm going to deliver that product, and you're going to be happy with it, because we have talked it through. We know what you want. I know what you want. I can create it. We've got a good plan together. Let's make it happen. And, again, I'm sharing that because I want people to think about different ways of doing things, but you still have to make money doing it. Sometimes, in that case, I really wanted that job. And so I just threw it out there. I put my ass on the line. I said, fine. But then they had to pay for it, because they had all these images and like, holy, like, we want all this.
I think that's a really great point. That's a really good sense of business. And I think a lot of people that are hearing this, or that are going to watch this online later, this is going to be something that resonates with a lot of people, because that is the sense of business within this world that we live in. I love that. I'm really glad you brought that up.
You don't have to give it all away for free.
That's right.
How many times have you heard that? You don't have to give it all away for free.
In fact, stop giving it all away for free. You're bumming all the rest of us out, man. You're hurting. Yeah. You're sandbagging the industry. You're hurting everyone else that's worked their asses off to get to where they are. And I get it.
Somebody's not giving their product away for free. Why should you give your product away for free?
When's the last time you went to Walmart and got anything for free? You know what I mean?
I like to draw the line on some of this, because I think it's important to keep it relevant. And that if you're working with somebody who's branding and making money, and I mean, there's obviously money to be made. If you're not valuing the product, which to me is the King Kong, which is the creative side, the imagery and the video, if you're not valuing that properly, that's a bummer, because for me, I want to build this relationship with you. But let's, for example, say I'm working with, maybe it's some nonprofits or something, or I'm really committed to a movement, or I'm going to go do this photo shoot for, I don't know, some company, like they're a nonprofit and they're conservation based, or let's say it's dogs or something. I mean, there are reasons to rethink it a little bit and say, you know what, it makes sense for me to do this shoot. And it makes sense for all these reasons. But I draw the line when you're a for-profit corporation and the whole point of the imagery is to sell your product. I have to be paid for that. And if I'm not going to get paid for that, you can negotiate with some people for coats and jackets and all that cool stuff. To me, that's a given. Like, you just know, if we're going to do apparel, you supply the apparel. That's not part of the budget.
Right.
That's the way it is.
That's your budget.
Yeah. And so I feel like I don't ever want to get sideways, but that's where I draw the line. If it's a poor profit situation, you're selling your product through my imagery, I have to be paid and compensated. I mean, back in the day, there used to be models for this, and maybe there still are. But for example, 15 years ago, you could get the data and say, what is my image worth if it's going to be on the cover of Newsweek, or maybe it's an inside spread for an ad in a magazine that, let's say, sells 3 million copies. It was the value of the image for that ad was about 3 to 5%, maybe a little higher in some areas. So if they spent $250,000 to run that ad in Newsweek or Time magazine, You take 3 to 5% of that $250,000, that's the value of that photo. So at least there was a math problem you could do. Like when you're negotiating over stock, you could say, hey, I know that that's worth about $25,000.
Well, I think that that's a really, let me,
And,
if
and
I can
we've
interrupt.
kind of gone away from that. So if you guys know those, if you guys know where those that the numbers are, or if there's anything like that out there, I'd sure like to work on it, because we could all collectively use that knowledge. But to me, it's all over the map, because you got one guy who's like, oh my gosh, I can have my ad in a magazine of me or my buddy, and that's the payment. And it's like that, you just gave away $10,000, man. Like, what are you doing?
And on the other side of things, I think that people aren't negotiating their terms or their usage rights properly either. I mean, I had an example. I had sold images. This is in my wedding business. I had sold images to a venue to use for their website. A couple months down the road, I get a phone call. Hey, so-and-so's on a billboard in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about? They took one of the photos that I sold with a contract that said for website usage and made a billboard out of it. Do you know how much money they made off a billboard off a major highway in Philadelphia? So I call up. I'm like, ladies, what are you doing? We did not have a contract for the usage of this photo. Oh, we thought since we bought it, we could do whatever we wanted with it. It's like, you got to be on people's tails about this stuff. So I had to go and like make a legal action to get the money that I deserve for that particular ad. It was like insane. And I think that that happens a lot in the outdoor industry as
Brands
well.
are making so much money because they're getting so many.
You can't cut yourself short.
This is a brand friendly world we live in now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll make it even more dire. Here's the truth. Because of in our industry, people turn over constantly. It doesn't matter where you're at. I mean, I can't think of too many people that have been in the same job for more than 4 or 5 years. Like, their turnover is going like mad. And then you've got social media, and you've got all these things happening so quickly. Here's what happens. The guy leaves. There's a folder on the computer full of photos, and it's free for all. There's no contract associated with that, because they stick it in a folder called photos of the such and such gun or this or that, and the new social media guy shows up, and the new creative director shows up and goes, well, and then the boss is like, oh yeah, we paid for all that, it's good to go, and it starts showing up all over, and you're just like, what in the world? That's a tough conversation.
Yep.
And it's happening.
Well, that comes from inexperience on both ends of the job. I mean, inexperience on the photographer's part to not set forth a proper contract, and even if he did, then it's inexperience on the new person on that brand's team, whether it's social media influencer or ambassador manager person, to not have those proper guidelines put in place. I mean,
I tell people that I work with on this, it's pretty simple. If you don't have something in writing for the photo, you can't use it. That doesn't mean you don't have the rights. It just means you better go do a little research on where that came from and who owns it. Yep. Because otherwise, you could be jeopardizing your company. You could jeopardize their Instagram account, their Facebook account. And I have taken some sites down for this reason. There's been Facebook sites that have come down, Instagram accounts. And so I'm not afraid to take it on. It's a waste of time in some ways, but at the other hand, it's like nobody's standing up for your product. And so I just try to talk to people, and this is why POMA is important too.
I was just going to say that.
Mm-hmm. These are all educational things you can learn when you become part of an association like that, which I'm going to join to after the show.
All that stuff is so important, and you can. And I'm not telling people, oh, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just saying, if you're getting into this, licensing is important. If you have no business being on the social media platform, if you don't understand licensing, if you don't understand who owns content in the universe, and that you're the social media person, like, what are you doing hiring someone that doesn't know their job? So yeah, they can make a post, but what are they doing?
That's like hiring someone to be a dentist because they have really nice teeth.
Exactly.
I love working with, there are companies, brands that get all this, and I love working with those companies because they don't go outside of the box. They know what they're doing. They know who they want to work with, and they don't deviate from that. And I love that because you know, I mean, they're getting professional work and they're paying for it. They know what it's worth, and they know what they know how to play the game. And I just love that.
Well, I couldn't agree more. There's some guys out there I work with that, like, they're just, it's so refreshing. They show up and they're like, they ask the right questions. You can have a logical discussion. And I even like it better when a client comes to you and says, this is our budget. I mean, if you
Exactly.
start off with a budget, at least there's trust building. And that's, again,
That's it.
you have
That's
some
it.
trust.
Yes.
It's not like they're going to say, well, we got $100,000 to do this job. And you're going to go, how can I make it cost $100,000? It's,
No, no.
well, for $100,000, this is what we can do. Not, I mean, if you got 200, we can do more. Or they say, here's the work plan, here's the budget. And you're like, you're about halfway there on being able to produce that. So at least you have a discussion, and there's nobody that's going to be upset after you both spend 20 hours negotiating and talking and saying, oh, everybody's like high-fiving. And then you look at the money and you're like, dude, we can't do this for 20 grand, you know?
Right. Yeah. Man, this discussion is wonderful. We could sit here and talk about this all day long, and we would probably build a huge following because these are such important concepts and interesting, ideas and thoughts. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but we definitely want to have you back on here, Tony, because like I said, this could go on forever.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's pick something to do it again, something maybe more specific, or maybe around POMA time, maybe, who knows, our conference or whatnot. But it's been a real pleasure, and you guys are fantastic. And I just want to tell you, and if I haven't told you already, when I first saw the work that you guys were doing on this podcast, or I don't even know what you call it, webcast or
video podcast,
video blog,
it's
live streaming.
It's
blogging.
the outdoor cameraman experience. That's what it is.
I was like, if I was going to do it, that's what I would do, because you got people who are knowledgeable about it. They like what they're doing. They're super nice folks. I mean, you guys, this is great. I love it. I wish it all the best, and I'll help it move forward, because it's the only thing like it. I don't know of any other thing in our universe that's like it. And you guys are the perfect combination for it. It's fantastic. So I appreciate you having me on.
That means a lot coming from you. And how do people join POMA? Let's educate people. How do you go get it?
Professionaloutdoormedia.org and go to membership. You can sign up that way. If you want to contact me at tonybynum.com, or tony@tonybynum.com is my email address. That's cool too. Talk to Kevin, who's our executive director. Reach out to the board. If you go to the website again, professionaloutdoormedia.org, you will find a list of our board members. Call one of them up and say, hey, I'm interested in becoming a member. Tell me more about the organization. Don't wait. I mean, do it. Like, the sooner you get involved, the sooner you put that out there. If you put $200 out, you could make that back in 1 or 2 airplane flights, because if you fly media, you don't have to pay the extra baggage fees. I mean, right up front, I can save tons, and I do it all the time. I check one bag, and they want a 75 or 100 or 300 or whatever. It's United does a fantastic job with it. So
maybe POMA, maybe when you join and get a membership, POMA should provide a media card for every member. Oh, you do? You get a media card? That right there alone will save you money in baggage and freaking check bags alone.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to show you mine, but I got to. Oh, here it is. Let me just show it to you really quick so you guys can see what it looks like. And this year, I think our new ones are going to have your picture on it, because we've gotten some pushback from airlines about that, saying, well, and so I think we're going to be putting pictures on them. But anyway.
If anything, how cool is it just to be like, POMA, I'm media.
Yeah. I photographed the President of the United States with this credential.
There you go.
Remember, you told me that a month or two ago, you were in Washington.
I applied online, but this was one of the credentials I used. And I got through the White House press guys, and they said, sure, and sent me a press pass. And I went through the back door at the convention here and was photographing the president. It was freaking cool.
And at the very least, again, the world that we live in, we need a voice. We need an organization to keep things organized, keep things, within the boundaries of what we've talked about. And this is really the only organization that does that in our world. So I'm going to go join. I've got an eye appointment to get new contacts here in about 45 minutes. But when I get back, I'm going to join POMA. I'm going to screenshot my application, and I'm going to be a part of this.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
explaining all this to us.
Thanks for
Thank
sharing your
both of you.
reporting with us, Tony. I know that there's a lot of people who are watching and will watch who are going to appreciate all the things that you brought up, and hopefully learn something, and maybe ask some. You feel free, everybody. You can still comment on these that sit on Facebook. You can interact, and we will interact with you back. Our guests are always more than happy to answer any questions that you have after the fact. So feel free to log on and ask Tony some questions. I'm sure he'll be happy to answer.
At Hunt Photos on Instagram. That's a good place to go. Everybody should know that by now. If you can't get them by email, shoot them a message on Instagram. They'll figure it out. So,
Awesome.
have a good day.
Tony, love your work. Thank you so much. You're a great guy. Love all the education you brought to the program. If you guys don't know, I mean, you've seen Tony's work on Outdoor Life covers, Field and Stream, Sports Afield. It goes on and on and on. He's an amazing photographer, and he's highly knowledgeable about the business, brings a lot to the table. So thank you so much, Tony. We really appreciate you, man.
Thank you. Good job, guys.
So,
woo, we could talk, man. That could go on for a long time.
Heck yeah. I mean, I think a lot of times we talk about a lot of things that we as photographers or people who work in this industry just talk about anyway behind closed doors. And not necessarily that it's a secret, but I think a lot of people share opinions and views or questions. So I think, guys, interact with us. This is a really good platform for us to know what you guys want to hear about, what questions you have. Send us messages. We'll book people you want to talk to. We'll try to book them, and we'll keep it going. We have a lot of fun with the show. We're really glad that you guys are watching and giving us the feedback.
Yeah, I'm really glad we do this too. That was refreshing. That was a great show. I'm glad we're back. I missed it. We've been gone for 4 or 5 weeks, and I missed the show. I missed interacting with you. I missed interacting with the guests and looking at all the questions and comments. So I'm glad we're back and looking forward to the next several weeks.
Hey, we could high five through the screen here. Let's do it.
Let's do it up front.
Wrong hand. Wrong hand.
What?
Hey, to the side. To the
oh
side.
Wait. Like
yes.
that? Okay. I'm not seeing what you're seeing on the screen. Gotcha.
You look back and
Gotcha.
But it was a good show. I'm glad we caught up, guys. Catch the archived episodes at youtube.com/outdoor cameraman experience, and definitely interact with us. Leave comments there, leave comments on Facebook, and we will catch you next time.
Bye, Jess. There's a lag in your video.
Oh no.
Yeah.